Division 4, Justin Lane, not present. Division 3, Frank Donato.
Here.
Division 2, Keith Dice.
Here.
Division 1, Shelby Sosa.
Here. Item number 4, adoption of agenda.
Move we adopt the agenda. No second.
Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The agenda has been adopted. Item number 5, public comment period. Does anybody here wish to speak? Seeing none, we now need a motion to adjourn to the Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency Funding Authority.
Also move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any discussion? Anybody against it, excuse me? Motion passes, sorry. I'm gonna abstain. Okay, item SP, approve minutes of the regular board meeting of the Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency Financing Authority of February 13th, 2018.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Now I need a motion to reconvene to the Antelope Valley East Kern Water Agency's regular meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're now back in session for our regular meeting. Item number 6, new business. You don't have any? Okay, item number 7, consent calendar.
I'll make a motion we approve the consent calendar.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 8, Finance Committee, Director Donato.
Yes, the Finance Committee met yesterday. We have 3 items in front of us. First one is consider the possible action on attendance at the Endangered Species Act Conference. It's going to be coming up in January. I have asked to put that on here. The name of the organization is, what is it again?
It's the
Seminar.
group.
Seminar group. This item, I think it should be also, I think the organization should be approved, so standing approval for the board to attend, because there's another one coming up right after this in March that has to do with the building policy of California, which is huge, because we're right in the middle of that, regarding to keep us, and some of the top attorneys teach these sessions. So on this one right here, can I make a motion for both, like we approve it as well?
I believe we need to ask for that as a future agenda item and approve this for today.
Okay, I'll go ahead and make a motion on 8A1 that we approve the attendance for any of the directors who want to go.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Okay, so we can put that on the next one. Okay, second item is 8A2, consideration of possible action to adopt a purchasing policy. That is going to be moved to our next meeting. We're going to go into that extensively. They've done a lot of work, staff, and we started getting into this thing, and we just have, I think we got after the third item, we were just asking a lot of questions, so it'll be good for the whole board to attend that meeting. Last one,
It's a committee meeting.
no, it's a board meeting.
It's a committee meeting.
Oh, I'm sorry, committee meeting, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. You're right, it's going to be in a committee meeting. Well, you're probably gonna be happy because you have to spend 3 hours on
Yeah. Exactly.
it. Okay, so here, okay, item 8A3, consideration of possible action to award contracts to the Aqua-Aerobic Systems to perform scheduled 5-year maintenance at Quartz Hill, Rosamond, and Eastside plants. It's $191,410.88. Dwayne or
Yes, Jon Bozigian, our operations manager, will provide the staff report.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, Dwayne. Good evening, Commissioners. I'll bring you up to speed on why we're doing this and what we use ozone for here at AVEK, in case you're not familiar with it. When we did the DVP project, disinfection byproduct project expansion in 2008, 2009, AVEK elected to install ozone generation systems at all 4 treatment plants. And what ozone does for water treatment is certainly it oxidizes the TOC, which causes THM formation, which is something we don't want. And it also removes all the taste and odor from the water. You can imagine when you're treating state project water in the middle of summer, no matter what you do, that finished product can have a little bit of a musty taste and smell to it. In the old days, we used to feed activated carbon, which was very expensive, very dirty, very dangerous. It's a very flammable powder. And the ozone removes any taste and odor from the water to the point where we've even had customer complaints sometimes when we turn the ozone generation off to do maintenance or repairs. People will call and complain after a couple days and say the water tastes funny. Well, it doesn't. It just has water taste. Ozone removes everything from it. Anyway, it's a very complex, expensive piece of equipment. It was about $2 million per site average to install these systems. We have redundancy at each plant, so there's 2 ozone generators at each plant. And every 5 years, we have to do major maintenance on these units. And what the company comes in, first of all, we bought these units from Fuji Electric. They since sold to Metal Water, and since then they've sold to Aqua-Aerobic Systems. So you can imagine it's like anything, you know, they sell. But Aqua-Aerobics does support these systems. And they'll come in and they will completely disassemble these generators. Now, for those directors that have toured the plants, these are so big they're housed in separate buildings. We use very high frequency, high voltage electricity, 15,000 volts, and we hit it with liquid oxygen, and that creates the ozone gas. So it's a very complex system. You can imagine pulling these things apart is pretty expensive, to the tune of about $200,000. But they'll go in, they'll disassemble, they'll replace circuit boards, cooling fans, tighten all the electrical connections, completely go through these, because we can't afford to have failure, especially in the middle of summer. It works out to about $40,000 a year to do this work. So as I said, we do it every 5 years. The price we got was a little higher than we thought. We had budgeted $140,000 for this specific item. It came in at $191 because, as you can imagine, prices go up, labor goes up. But the main thing is these circuit boards are becoming increasingly hard to find. And so I think we're very fortunate that they do have all the parts. They're still supporting it, which is good. So with that said, I'd be happy to answer any questions on the ozone systems.
no, you're doing a good job, and the Finance Committee reviewed this yesterday, and this has to be done, and John has spaced them out, so we staggered the work. I'll go ahead and move on. Order A3, that we approve the $191,410.88.
I'll second the motion.
Any questions?
I do have a question. Are there other providers of this type of service at all, or is they the only provider?
Well, that's a good question, because you think, you know, like anything else, if you own a Ford, you can take it to a mechanic and he'll fix it for you. These are proprietary. And so the circuit boards, the cooling fans are all proprietary to Fuji Electric / Aqua-Aerobics. So yes, we've checked, and you can't find other people to work on them, but they have to buy all the parts from Fuji Electric or from Aqua-Aerobics, so we wouldn't save anything. It's very specialized. Yeah, we did check.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Good question.
Very good, that's a very good question. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank you.
That concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Donato. Number 9, old business, there is none. Number 10, general manager's report, please.
All right, here we go for December 10th, 2019. Let's see. Make sure I got this. There we go. So here's the state weather forecast. It's mostly cloudy with rain through the next week. Snow levels are about 6,000 feet, rising to 8,000 feet as it warms up over the next several days. And if you notice here in the graphics, the water, whoops, this area that's shaded in brown, this is the watershed. So that's the area where all this water comes from for our new director. So there is a state U.S. drought monitor report that comes out, and this is the beginning of the year. You can see that because of the low rainfall in October and a little bit of November, it's below normal, and it's in yellow as shown here. You can see if this was all clear, or if it was all white, it would be not in drought conditions. But we're just really small in this area here, and it'll probably change with the good rainfall that we've had the last few weeks. This gives you an idea of our classification. So you can see, excuse me, the green lines and the various shades of green classify as wet years. So these would be classified as wet years, and you can see the amount of million acre feet of runoff that we had that come out of in those particular years. So the green are considered more wet years. The orange are considered dry years, and the red ones are considered critically dry. So you can see we've had 2 years of critically dry years in between 2000 and 2015, and you can see how this has gone. The last couple of years, we've been very fortunate in getting some fairly wet years coming this way. So this information is available to us. So if we're looking at the...
Can you go back for a second?
Sure.
What's interesting about that graph is it's really consistent. I mean, from 1905 to now, you know, you got your ups and downs, ups and downs, ups and downs. Okay, so I guess God didn't change the weather patterns since 1905, the way this thing looks. But there is a big thing that needs to take notice. It isn't global warming. The difference between 1905 and today in California is from 5 million to 40 million.
Right.
And so when we go to 50 million, this graph is not going to change, I guarantee, unless there's meteor hits the world or whatever.
Right.
But I'm telling you, that's the issue. It's people growth. Everything here, the greens are up and down within margins, the dry years are all up and down. It's amazing to see that pattern run, you know, consistently like that. Difference is, what are we going to do with the next 10 million people?
Right.
That's
It's
what it
just
comes down to.
your demand keeps increasing and the water supply stays
Right.
constant.
That's, yeah. Look at, I mean, it's amazing. I mean, it's like the reds, all the reds are almost identical, and the yellows and the greens.
You can see we had major droughts in the 20s and 30s. And we had this nice period in here where we didn't have any significant drought conditions, but we still had some critically dry periods. And, you know, those years of being low. So
Yeah,
that's
pretty interesting.
But it is up and down.
It's up and down.
That's the one thing you can count on. It's going to change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guarantee back in 1958, they wouldn't have gave us a 10% allocation, it would have been 100% even back then.
Yeah, exactly. So if we look at the snow level, this is the northern Sierra up here, this is the central and the southern Sierra. And what's interesting to note here is that our snow levels, we do have snow levels, which is good this early in the year, and we're right about average. So you can see we're right about here. And this kind of baby blue line here, that's what the average of the snow level is. So each year we track this, and some are below and some are higher, and you can see that we're doing okay to start off the year as far as snow goes. And if you remember a week or two ago, I showed you this graph, and we didn't have any yellow hardly at all, right? It was just absolutely not much at all. So you can see November is a few inches short of what we would anticipate. Average is 6.6 inches. We're at 2.9. But you can see December in just 10 days. This is as of this graph is updated as of today. And you can see we're at 6.4 inches. And so we only need 3 inches to meet our average. And it could go with a good storm or two, with they're anticipating, we could go over that. But the one thing you can count on, there won't be any rain New Year's Day. We never have rain on New Year's Day for those parades. And then, here's the corresponding chart for where we get our water from. Once again, here's the average amount that comes through here. These years are dry years, with 78 and 77 being the driest of them all. But you can see that we're already past that. We're up at 9.6 inches, so we're already doing better and fairly close to average, and it's certainly on a rise. So you can see just in a few weeks how we can really increase the amount of rainfall that's occurred with a couple of these storms as they come through. And so we'll keep tracking this every 2 weeks and see how it goes as far as weather goes. So what does that mean to the reservoirs? That means that we're getting good water flow into Lake Oroville, and San Luis reservoirs in pretty good shape for this time of year. We're 48% of capacity and 77% of its historical average, so we're not doing too bad at all. Once again, here's your line. You can see we're right about just below average as far as the storage that's in Oroville.
I got a question.
Sure.
So, I mean, these reservoirs, they're in great shape. I mean,
Right.
phenomenal shape. So
Right.
far, everything else predicting that we're going to have a wet year overall. We're going to have spillover. I mean, San Luis is going to be spilled over. What are we going to do? Will all this water be released in the ocean? I mean, is there any way? I remember about 20 years ago we were able to pick up water. In fact, the farmers, I think, paid us $25 an acre foot to take our water. Remember there was that
Right.
scenario. So how can we get some of that free water if this happens instead of going in the ocean that we can
Right.
put in our water banks?
Yeah, what we'll do and what we will be doing is we'll be putting water in our water banks as much as we can over December, January, and February to reduce the amount of spill that we might lose. In addition to that, when there is a spillage that occurs, because we have our water banks, and even though we have very little demand during those periods, we will still be cranking up everything that we can take, because that's Article 21 water doesn't count against our allocation. It's just additional water that we can get just for the cost of pumping it over to Tehachapi's. 25,000 acre feet of carryover from one year to the next.
So we can take all that if
We can try and take as much of that as we possibly can. Yeah, that's the idea. Is to
when are they going to start flooding Amagosa Creek?
they're going to start. We got what's it, Thursday is the.
Yeah, on the 12th is the groundbreaking ceremony, and we're working with city staff on flowing water through the basins. So hopefully by the end of the year we can start flowing.
We can start working through it.
It'd be good to show when we had the groundbreaking, all that stuff is,
Yeah, I think that's,
Show water?
I think that's kind of the concept, is hopefully we'll be able to show water flowing into the basins on Thursday.
Yeah, they're kind of weird that you do.
Because we've already tested it. Last month, they actually did the flow test on everything.
So, yeah, and Palmdale Water District has also filed a change of delivery point for the planning to bank some of their water supplies to.
You have to speak up a little bit too.
We gotta get closer. All right. So as we start the year off, as far as state water project allocation, we got 10%, which was the initial allocation. This is not unusual, and it's based on several factors such as our hydrology, reservoir storage, and environmental demands. And not to get directed out too excited, but one of the problems that we have is when we have a real wet period and we have attractive flows for fish, that they tend to want to reduce the amount of pumping, even though we have a lot of outfall that's associated with that. Because you want to have some runoff, but not too much runoff to attract the fish, because then you got to turn off the pumps. So it's got to have kind of the mama bear, papa bear, just the right amount of runoff to be able to get the water across the delta in the wintertime. So it's interesting. Okay, and we'll have our first snow survey, which happens on the 2nd of January. Maybe 2020 already. So conventional treatment plants, we're currently flowing 15 million gallons a day. And you can see the various items for Rosamond, and this has been fairly consistent. So we're averaging about 18 million gallons a day over the last 7 days. So it's pretty low, which is what we would expect in the wintertime. Geopurification, this is the minimum requirements that we have to keep everything fresh and move water through the system. We're looking at 3 to 4 million gallons a day through that system. And then, as I've indicated to you, we've continued to, our current rate's 144 acre feet a day, which is the maximum amount that we can take in our west side water bank. And you can see we've got a small amount that's going to the east side. So this is the graph for the requests versus actuals, and you can see there where the light blue line is the request for water deliveries, and the dark blue line is the actual deliveries for the month.
Can we get a diagram with names on it?
Names being?
Customer names.
Oh, sure.
That
Sure.
next to the.
We could get to that point, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we could get names, it's easy, we should be a lot of different colors, pretty colors out there. But, yeah, they'd be pretty small, some of them, so. As far as water quality updates go, our raw water turbidity, bromide, and TRC are real low. That's been very good. We have a upcoming lab audit for our new lab to get accredited for another, I think it's a 3-year period. They go through the accreditation process. So we're gearing up for that. Operation maintenance updates. If you remember correctly, Calgon is the vendor that is replacing the media at this particular facility, and they're about 75% of complete. They have 12 filters that they're working through and doing that project. It seems to be going along very well. Winter maintenance projects, as you can imagine, this is the time when we can take certain portions of the feeder system down for maintenance, and the staff is planning for those, and those will be occurring between January and February when the use is at the lowest point. We also don't have any freeze damage or interruptions during the past storms, in case anyone's interested with that. We also received our 3rd generator, so we're moving closer with that, and our tow vehicle will be here the first of the year. And we're also working on the 2021 capital budget. So. As far as the High Desert Water Bank updates, we've received our signed Metropolitan Water District agreement, and we have it in hand. So,
That's fantastic news.
you know, that agreement's worth probably $300 million over the course of the next 40 years for the agency, so it's important. Our design RFP is currently under review, and that's proceeding along nicely, and we're also, property acquisition continues, and we're very close in that aspect of the project. I'm from the STIP Phase 2 project. We had a briefing with Edwards Air Force Base representatives of Air Force Base today. We were able to talk to them about the benefits associated with the STIP line and requested a letter of support from the Air Force Base for our application to the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation. They agreed to provide that letter of support for us. They were very happy with what we're trying to do for them and increasing their reliability. We're working on our feasibility study. We have a preliminary review with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation next week, and then NEPA work continues. And Townsend is working with the governor's office to get the letter that'll be necessary to include in the application. So, in essence, everything's working along to get this wind funding, which is $26 million, to be able to build that piece of the pipeline that's in yellow on there. Regulatory updates. The voluntary agreements are once again gaining some momentum, despite the complete disdain that the state and federal officials have for each other. They're also realizing that this is the only way to actually move forward and protect the fish environments that they're trying to protect. And so we're getting more and more of the NGOs, which is non-governmental organizations that are environmental in nature, actually participating in the project, or process, I should say. And the Newsom administration is although they filed to block the federal biological opinions, they are admitting that cooperatively working together amongst ourselves is the only way we're going to move forward. So. And our PFAS, the PFAS testing passed unanimously through the House and Energy Committee. This is on the federal level. And this is a toxic substance, and there'll be some testing requirements that'll come down from this law to the states and then consequently down to us. And we're watching this very closely. It could have a significant impact on all public water suppliers in the state of California. And also House Bill 1764, this is the Garamendi bill. House Transportation Infrastructure Committee approved the Federal Water Pollution Control Act, and it did a lot of things with regards to the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System, which increased the permits for 5 years, because it takes you about 5 years to get a permit. So by the time you got one and you got it implemented, you had to start the new one. You know, it was one of those things. So they extended that out 10 years, which is reasonable. And then it has a lot to do with wastewater, but the important aspect has to do with the water recycling portion of it, and supports the enhanced planning and efficiency of local groundwater programs for water quality reasons. So there's some. That's what that House bill is all about. As far as events and schedules, we got the Thursday is the groundbreaking ceremony. You've got the Colorado River Water Users Association Conference in Las Vegas, 11th through the 13th. AV Board of Trade Breakfast, 12/17, and our special board meeting on 12/17. My schedule is I'll be in the office all this week and majority of next week. Happy to answer any other questions that you may have.
Thank you, good report. Item 12, attorney's report. Does Tilden
Tilden?
want
This
to-
is Tilden Kim. Yes, this is Tilden Kim, nothing to report.
Thank you. Item 14, closed session. Do we have any reason to go to closed session tonight?
We do not.
Okay. Oh, I skipped something.
Director's report.
Director's reports. Any directors have any report or any requests for future agenda items, number 13? Just the one, Frank, that you had? Okay. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Move we adjourn?
Do we need to say? Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.